You know, I really didn't anticipate revisiting Katie Wilson's Seattle so soon, but here we are.
100,000. I'm like 2,000 subscribers away. That is literally one viral video, and 200K. I'll get that plaque that says 100K. Shooting. Oh shit. Oh shit, right here.
And before I get into it, here's the who, what, where, and when of it. And several injured in shooting at food festival near Seattle Space Needle. Police said there were two suspects who were shooting at each other. One of the suspects is in custody and the other still at large, although officials have said there is no threat to the public. Shots rang out around 1800 local time, 1 p.m. General Mountain Time at one of the city's most popular tourist spots, as the annual Bite of Seattle's food festival drew even more people to the downtown area. 2 deaths were confirmed at the scene and 1 person died later in hospital. Those injured included a 2-year-old boy, officials said. Now, I'm not here to try and use this one isolated incident of violence in Seattle to try and prove a point of, mass criminality in our democratic cities. I did that yesterday when I showed you how many people were shot and killed in just the past 4 days in Chicago alone. What I'm here to talk about is a couple things in the article, in the reporting, that kind of stuck in my craw a little bit. Firstly, I find it a little bit odd that they will only refer to the suspect in custody as a young person. They won't give, or haven't thus far, given any more details concerning age, race, gender. We can all assume it's probably a guy, and we can pretty safely assume that it is some sort of minority. And assuming that is the case, well, you can see, as they're already trying to do, that they're going to attempt to try and play that down and ignore that fact as much as possible, because, as I said yesterday, it doesn't fit the narrative. But, of course, they've been hiding the identity of these assailants as long as possible for years at this point, so it's not surprising and not something that I'm really going to harp on about it. I just wanted to point it out. No, the thing that really gets me here is this statement from Mayor Wilson. Wilson said in a statement that she wanted to thank the Seattle police officers who responded to the scene and took a suspect into custody. Oh, really, Katie? Now you want to thank the police? Miss, defund the police. Miss, defund the police, and then during your mayoral campaign and debate, deny that you ever supported defunding the police. News release: Katie Wilson denies past comments on abolishing SPD. For immediate release September 15, 2025. Katie Wilson denies past comments on abolishing SPD. Seattle. In the Seattle Channel's 2025 mayoral debate, Katie Wilson denied direct quotes she made to the press about abolishing SPD. Mayor Bruce Harrell raised Wilson's comments on wanting to move towards a future entirely without SPD in the context of a record advocating for defunding the police and approaching to addressing Seattle's public safety needs. Now, this too is no great surprise, because we all know that these democratic socialists are the most disingenuous people that will say anything that they need to say to get into power. But it is still ironic that you're here thanking the police while simultaneously, in your heart of hearts, not just supporting the defunding of them, but the complete abolishment of the police. And if you think I'm exaggerating, let's take a look at the foundation, or the policy rather, that she has been in support of. See here, SeattleSolidarityBudget.com at the very top. Defund cops, courts, and cops, courts, and prosecutors. Seattle's historic overinvestment in policing and punishment as a response to social problems began a long overdue reversal in 2020. This year, we demand that the divestment from SPD continue and that Seattle commit to shrink other parts of the policing pipeline by defunding the municipal court and the criminal division of the city attorney's office. How insane is it that the people that govern over the most violent segments of our entire nation are the ones most ardently calling for the abolishment of the police, the people that will presumably hold these criminals accountable? And don't get me wrong, we've got untold problems with policing, with the laws that are enforced, the laws that are not enforced. All that to be said, though, acting like police are simply the problem and that society will suddenly ascend to some, socialist paradise where everybody respects everybody else's rights and personal space and property is absurd and in complete denial of human nature. As I've said many a times before, humans are self-interested, and humans with absolutely nothing to lose, well, they will do whatever they need to do for their self-interest. And in fact, at times, many will become so cynical and so pessimistic. What's the word? Nihilistic. So nihilistic in their view of their life and their inability to ascend that they will go out and hurt people simply for the weird, subversive joy of making someone else hurt the way that they do. But you don't want to address that. Matter of fact, you want to cut them loose. Just take the fucking chains right off and let them run rampant through the cities, killing and stealing and robbing and raping everyone in their path. And if you get your way, there'll be no one left to stop it. If you had your way already, these two suspects that ultimately killed 3 people at your event, well, they would have just walked away. Who would have been there to catch them? Your community, whatever groups, I can't remember what they're called, the little community social worker bullshit groups. Yeah, because I'm sure these dudes that just caused 3 deaths and many more wounded in a huge event full of hundreds of thousands of people, I'm sure that they're just going to be like, oh, hey, I'm sorry, I'll come with you. My bad. Where you want me to go to jail now? Okay. Of course, if Miss Wilson and the rest of the DSA had their way, no one would be going to prison. They'd be sticking these people in treatment programs to address their anger problems or drug addiction or whatever, thinking that because things like that have worked in places like Norway or Sweden, that policing and justice can work the same here. You know, I've said many a times before that a large part of the reason that these nations, these European nations, are able to do things like this and have also such lower rates of violence is because they are ethnically and culturally homogenous. The people within Sweden, the people within Norway, they are all of the same background and they understand one another. And because they so closely can rely on that understanding, that they alienate individuals less, because there's only one culture. There's hardly any question where you fit in. And this is not to say that there aren't malcontents, there aren't people that don't fit in, but the rate at which that will happen, and again, an ethnically, culturally homogenous society compared to the melting pot of the United States, well, it should be obvious to you the alienation and a nation made of how many cultures, how many subcultures. Yeah, of course, alienation is going to happen. And at the same time, the treatment for the action taken in response to that alienation cannot be the same. Because the alienation isn't the same. Because the world that they return to isn't the same as the world that a Swede or a Norwegian returns to when they leave prison. But don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for ethnic or cultural homogeneity in the United States. I love and absolutely want to retain our melting pot way of being. And I'm willing to accept that there will be some form of alienation and there will always be violence due to this. You know, anytime you put 2 groups together that don't necessarily agree or see things the same, violence is a potentiality. And I'm willing to accept that to live in a truly free nation. That being said, we still need police to address the violence, to address the criminality. Otherwise, it all burns. But Governor Mayor Katie Wilson, there's so many nutjob leftists. Mayor Wilson truly would let it all burn if she got her way.